Hello, Kim. Thank you so much for joining me. I've been stalking your Facebook page and I find it really profound, your ability to articulate pain, like your own personal pain, in such a way that other people haven't, I don't know, have been able to identify it, like they know what's going on, because I know that you've struggled with depression and anxiety as well as postnatal depression. But even before we go into that, I really want to know, and I know that the viewers here would love to know, what's the biggest obstacle that you've had in your life so far, and the means that you know it's huge, and it's your choice, and the means that you've overcome it, because I know your story can help many people out there. So you go for it, my love. Just launch into it anyway. Okay.
No problem. Well, yeah, I think it's just mainly been that mental state, really, that anxiety and depression, and the stigma that goes along with it, and the way that you judge yourself. For me, I think it was a workplace bullying situation. So it was that level of control or lack of control that I think I struggled with the most. It took a long time. Let's face it. It's about just the small things, really kind of understanding the little things that trigger you, and just kind of dealing with those rather than trying to take on the big picture all the time. I think for me it was taking that action with the workplace situation. I needed to take that extra step, so I knew that my, I guess, social and moral conscience was addressed, and I could always walk away going, I'm glad I did, rather than I wish I could have. But then, yeah, most of these things are primarily you deal with alone. Those darkest moments are always on your own. So it's being able to appreciate that, work through it, let the emotions out, let it flow, and yeah, I guess spend that time to work through the two main things, which are guilt and fear that come with it, really.
I don't know if you can elaborate a lot more, but how did it start off? Because I know a lot of people aren't aware of what bullying is. Like, even you can give examples. Like, there is so many, from my experience, witness things happening to other employees, and I didn't stand up thinking, and now I look back, I think, gee, that was an example of bullying. It wasn't right what that was going on in the workplace. So colleagues, managers, and even if you can enlighten us with not your own personal examples, but examples of.
Yeah, it does become quite tricky. A lot of these things happen over a long period of time. So the position I was in a leadership position, and it was a top-down situation. So I really found I put myself between, I guess, everyone working below me and that upper management area. So not only were things directed to me, but I felt a lot of responsibility for those that I was working with and who I was responsible for. So I tended to put myself more in that situation where I was stepping between the two. And unfortunately, it was the kind of situation where you didn't have that opportunity to talk or share, and there was a lot of techniques used that, or confidentiality clauses that were put in place, so you couldn't talk to other staff members about what was happening. My situation was, I guess, that the person in the management position worked so hard to I guess, against me, is that there was a good paper trail left behind. So in our particular situation, I think there was about 33 staff members, and over a 18-month, 2-year period, I was number 21 out.
Wow.
I think there was about 3 remaining by the time she went out herself. So it was a clear pattern, and people could really identify what was going on. but it was about having that paperwork where I was able to take those extra steps and really prove what had been going on and the impact it was having on so many people. And that was where that social and moral consciousness really kind of kicked in for me, and I really had to stand up and do something. But I also, at the same time, didn't realise how much it had affected me, because it is that kind of ongoing thing over such a long period of time that you don't realise the kind of situation you're in until, you know, I stopped work, and then at least 6 months later I was looking back and wow, I had no idea I'd really gotten into that place. And it was actually the people around me that had asked me to stop working.
Wow.
And, you know, I said, oh, no, I'm fine, I'll keep going kind of thing. And then the next morning I went to get up and I went, no, I just can't. And it took a long time. There was a long time of, I guess, denial and going through the processes and everything. It wasn't until I was seeing the psychiatrists and psychologists regularly that I really got any kind of understanding of how far I'd gotten. And I know, you know, I remember having about a 2-week meltdown over the concept of just having to be medicated. You know, it's that kind of stigma that you have in your own head as well about that, about mental health and the impacts of mental health of the people around you, but also what it looks like in yourself, because everyone is really different. Yeah.
What I'm hearing from you, there's like one, I realize, like you're saying, for people that are coming into a business as well, if people are going out to excessive amounts, like if there's 21 people have left the business, you really shouldn't go in there because it's not a healthy workplace. Like I'm hearing that, but we tend to ignore those signs. Not saying that was you, but I know in the past I've ignored those signs. And what I'm also hearing is it's really important to reflect upon what the people around you, your loved ones, know you really well. And they were seeing the shift in you before you even saw it in yourself. And I know that within certain things in my life, my husband's very good at bringing things to my attention that I'm not even aware of. Like I'm grasping at straws trying to get there. And it's really like, and I hear what you're saying, it's about your mental health. Sometimes you're so spiraled into that thinking that you don't even realize, like I remember you shared with me before we spoke, it was like a circle that just keeps going around and around and around. And but you, because you're in that circle, like the monkey running on a wheel, I can think of that, running on a wheel, you don't even know what's going on. But it's
You just...
Yeah, go.
Yeah, you're just trying to get through each day. You're taking it, you know, step by step, day by day, and you don't get that overall picture. Like I lost a lot before I even left work, and it was a changeover in management. So it was a place that, you know, everyone was very much a family and very well connected, and it was that kind of environment that you wanted to fight for. Put it that way. And unfortunately, things turned out the way they did. So I guess had a relationship breakdown before I left, which was, you know, a 14-year relationship and things like that. And it really impacts the different relationships in your life and the way that you manage them, but also in the future, how you're able to connect with people and that kind of thing, which is, I guess, what I really pick up on now is how I deal with my friendships and how I deal with those relationships in my life is very different to what it used to be. So that's something, you know, I spend a bit of time working on now as well, is that openness and honesty and coming from the heart more and really kind of it doesn't have to be that facade all the time. I guess when you're in that professional role, you are maintaining that facade so much more for your own professionalism and career, but also for the people around you, above and below, and that kind of thing, to show that you have that strength and you can take on more and keep the boat floating and all those kind of things. yeah, it really does take its toll.
Well, what I'm hearing too is there was an uncertainty in your personal life as well. So you're looking for certainty in your workplace, like, because you know what was going on with your relationship. But then when there is complications are coming on, they're compacting on top of you and making it hard. And I agree with the fact that you're saying is that you have to live from this heart space and see where's right and what's wrong and how do I gravitate, like what feels good and what doesn't. And there must have been times through your journey that you probably ignored it, that it didn't feel right. Like it didn't feel right what was going on. But you, like you said, you had to keep that professionalism. You just had to keep on going. You're an example. Also, too, you've got a young boy. I suspect you put in there the fact is, well, I can't give up. I've got these commitments. These ties. And a friend once told me, because she was in a similar situation, it's like an abuser. The employer's like, or your management's like an abuser. It's like that they'll abuse you and throw these horrible things at you, but then they separate you from everybody else, and then they give you sweet nothings and whisper to you to come back. But then they keep doing the same behavior over and over and over again.
Yeah, it does take a particular type of person. And I think that's one of the things of how it does impact your relationships in your life, because I guess that person came through in an element of trust first, as a friend before they stepped into that role. So I think you do start to question, like, I always was a good judgment of people and connected well with people and read people well. So that kind of situation does make you question those kind of abilities that you tend to have. And I think for me, yeah, the workplace stuff really did impact the relationship. And it was a difference between a couple of months. The relationship broke down and I moved out in the August, and I ended up stopping work in the November. So it really was all kind of happening at once. And a part of those things is you lose those support networks.
Yeah.
Those networks that you are relying on, you do lose in, at the end of a relationship, or people who have moved on from the workplace, or people who are still working there. You're in a different situation and a different standing with them. So the relationships that you were relying on kind of morph into something a bit different as well. I didn't have my son until about 2 years after I left work. So that was a bit of a different situation there. Unfortunately, that's what we were talking about before, like that kind of level of guilt and different things, because he never got to know the kind of person that I was.
Yeah.
As opposed to the person I am now. So I think what we're talking about with the guilt and the grief and stuff like that, a lot of that is letting go of who you were and kind of rebuilding and taking ownership of the fact that you now get a chance to build into a new person. You're not going to go back to where you were before, but the lessons you've learned and what you're going through, you get to rebuild yourself into something that's stronger and has that different view, I guess.
That's powerful. It makes me think of my evaluations of my son being so young. I had to reflect upon the time I struggled becoming a mom, but you're actually putting into articulating beautifully what I needed to do. And I wasn't wanting to let go of my old life to evolve into this human being that I was meant to be for my son. Like, that's what our role is as a parent, is to keep evolving and changing according to who they are and not who we think we once were. And you put it in such an amazing way. Like, and it's really an important process. And I suspect your son teaches you those lessons too, is that constantly letting go and pulling those old onion layers off and creating something new that's great and beautiful. And she's got this magnificent mum that's capable of doing anything. And hats off to you being a single mum as well. Like, to me, I understand it's from the age of 6 months old. Is that right? From 6 months you embarked onto that journey. Like, and I suppose you had no choice, but a fear of mine of having my son with my husband, and it took me a long time to have a child, is because I was terrified I'd be in the position that you're in right now. Not that it was anything. Sorry about that. I don't know why that happened, but I was terrified, absolutely terrified of what would happen. And you're living that journey every day.
Yeah, I guess it's something a lot of us now think about when we're having children and things like that. Can I do this on my own? And you tend to take that into consideration when you find out all these different information and whatnot. So I guess I went into it knowing that could be the case. It may not be, but it's something I knew I had to think about. My mental health at the time, it was, and even continuing through till now, it does add a lot of challenges, but it also gives a lot of space for growth. I guess I had to let go of a lot of things, like I was saying about your triggers and stuff like that. You got to let go of the fact that the house is not going to be clean and you don't have to spend all day trying to clean it, and the anxiety that goes with that. I had to pick out the two things that were my main issues. I can't stand the dishes around the kitchen, and I'm terrible at folding that washing and getting it back into the cupboard, and my study. So they're kind of my three spaces that if they're taken care of, the rest of the place can fall down around me, and that's okay.
And I want to touch on that, because a lot of women apologize when you go to their house that their house is in a mess and disarray. But when your house is in a mess and disarray, the true reflection of what really is going on in your life. Like your house is to be lived in. It's not this picture perfect home that you're showing or trying to sell. You're actually showing my life. And for me, I get a little bit concerned if I see a parent, and especially my husband's sister has two little ones under 3 by herself. She made the choice to go through IVF and had 2 children by herself, and I think that's amazing. And her house is like flipped up in different directions, and she's working as well. But his mum used to go, I don't know why her house is clean. And I said, well, I'd rather her house messy and know her kids are looked after than her house is perfect and the kids are, in this disarray. And it's really important as we women stop apologizing when people come into our house that it's not manicured to a certain state, because it's really, that's how life is, isn't it? You know that too. And it's such a smart plan, you saying, I only can do this and that. And that's something I'm going to implement for myself, because I've realized I had to let things go with a young child and breastfeeding him. And there'd be days, like sometimes my washing would be in the washing machine for 2 days before I had to do another cycle, and then it wouldn't be out. And you talk about your clothes, and I've got a pile of clothes there waiting, they're folded to be put away, and I just keep going to get them. I think, I get the clean, like the ones that hung up, and may as well use the clean old ones so that I can, you know what I'm saying? Like it's smart to create systems that allow you to let go, because those things that don't matter, they just don't matter. And I also know, and I read this in your page about delegation, like it's really smart that we learn to ask for help and delegate. And I suspect in your situation with you probably had to overcome that and ask for help at times in respects to your son, or...
You do what you can. I mean, I'm in it. Yeah, I've always been in a bit of a different situation when it comes to those kind of things. I mean, unfortunately, we've moved a lot because of the financial situation and going through work cover and all those different things that come with legal cases, court cases, lawyers. There's so many different things that you have to manage. So you're constantly rebuilding, I guess, rebuilding relationships, rebuilding households, finding, which is your favourite cafe in the area, because if you don't get good coffee, the world's going to end. So I think being able to get out and walk, just giving yourself that space to go out for a walk. Doesn't matter where, doesn't matter how long, but if you can just strap that kid in and go for a walk, and you're getting that exercise, you're getting out in the sun, you're clearing your mind, but also getting out of the house, because you find being stuck in the house for such long periods of time with no adult input really affects the mental health as well. And I survived a lot on to-do lists. I find my short-term memory really wasn't that great. So I had lists everywhere about everything. So I guess one of the things I suggest there is always make sure that you have your self-care on those to-do lists, because sometimes it's an achievement just to have a shower and wash your hair and put on some moisturiser. And you will spend days in your pajamas or whatever, and so it is good to actually work through that stuff and go, actually, no, I'm important too. Yes. I need to go on this list. And even if it's just 3 things I can tick off that I've done for myself, well, then I've got stuff done. And it's not looking back at the kind of person and functionality you were and whatever positions and how much stuff you get going, but looking at the little things that you're getting going and actually, yes, ticking that off and going, yes, celebrating those little things. It takes a lot of work to be able to celebrate the little things when you're used to doing so much different.
It's important for us to show those celebrations. Like I always talk about the fact that we gotta have, show joy. Our children's model of how joy is in the world is based on us. And if we're in the seriousness of the world, we don't reflect. I can get very into this zone of where I've got to go, but a celebration. And then I think, oh, my husband's very good at doing it, running around laughing. And I think, geez, I've got to teach that too. I really got to get in those moments and let my son's joy land on me. Let it land, And I think one of the things that allowed me to do that is what you're talking about, is that self-care, is putting into play, is that you have to prioritize little things for you that make your heart sing, little tiny things. And for me, it's like you said, get outside, be out in nature. My husband works long hours and I'm lucky to have that contact, but sometimes he'll come home and sleep and I'll be talking to him while he's sleeping, trying I know that. And then I know there's so many mums out there craving, that adult contact. But like you said, I get outside, or I even go to social areas. Like you said, about going for the coffee, the poor barista, I talk their ears off. It's because we as human beings need connection. We absolutely need it. That's how we thrive. And for myself, I've talked about, I've had issues with food, and my food issues came from isolation. But as soon as I connected with other human beings and connection, that need, that yearning for food dissipates.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really important. I hear what you're saying, as mums, to just get out of the house. And if you can find, other mums to talk to too. I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to go back on to the thing I heard. How does your son go with the transition of moving to place? So you've said that you've moved before. How does he go with everything?
I think he's done fantastically. I mean, the way I get my solace and the way I get my time is I like to travel. I'm one of these people that likes to just pack the car and pick a direction and go.
Can I jump? I just want to share.
Yeah.
I read a post about yours. It was brilliant, about the fact that you got pregnant when you thought you were going to go off and travel, and you stopped, and you didn't stop. You found a way to do it with your son. And that's, I want people to know that. That's amazing. You just sort of curbed the degree of where you're going a little bit, and your son gets to experience that as well, So keep going. You're saying you get to travel, but I just really want people to know.
Yeah, I mean, I think those experiences have just been the most for us, that have really, that's provided the most rich kind of things for both of us, that have led into all sorts of journeys. The things that he's learnt while we trek around and the different kind of questions he asks. And we've driven across the Nullarbor, we've gone around Western Australia, we've gone up, I think Harvey Bay is the highest we've gone, Queensland, but we've done a lot of caves. But we've just had amazing times. And if you're not planning it, anything that grabs his attention, you can stop and have a look at it. You know, in Australia, we have so many amazing landscapes. Like, it's changing all the time. Just even if you're on the one road, it's changing all the time. And, you know, we've got so many big things. You can drive out in the middle of nowhere and find a big galah. Or if it's not a big built thing, we've just got landscapes that are just so big, and rocks, and just so much diversity there. And I found, you know, he's really into things about different farming and agriculture, and, you know, how does a sugar cane turn into sugar, or about bees and how the beehives work, or how cotton becomes clothes, and all these different things that you get to stop and work through and have a look at. And I didn't know he liked vintage cars until we ended up at this, it was a parade festival thing in New South Wales. And he was like squealing for like an hour. The amount of videos I got of it, he's just turned 2, I think it was, and he was just squealing at these cars. And I had no idea that he loved vintage cars. I don't know where it came from. But yeah, so that molded a lot of things that we did after that. We always stopped at the different car museums in a little country town somewhere, and things like that. So yeah, it's just amazing that the things that you find out and you wouldn't otherwise have done unless they were with you, or unless they had that particular interest and things like that. So, and you become incredibly proficient at playground hopping all around Australia. You're just going from playground to playground to playground. So yes.
What reminds my son sees the playground before I even see it in the car, because he hasn't got words. I look, oh my God, playground. Like, you know, and I'm the same. I want to do what you're doing. I think that's a wonderful idea. My husband loves to travel, but each time we go somewhere, he'll see it straight away, the playground, and we stop. Like, I make a point. Well, if that makes him happy, I can do it. And the best thing about it, it's a free activity. You know, it's free, and your child immensely loves it. And from him loving what he does, I get immense joy from it too. You know, and I also like something I read that you shared about how your son's made you slow down when you go walking through the farm fields, so you can see the ladybirds. And my son has done the same. Like, he sees the finer details that I overlook, like the true beauty behind everything. It's just, you sit, he is, and every child is, a form of meditation, where do you know what, like, they're testing you because you have to go through the thoughts of where you're at to let them go, you know, let them. But then 2, they bring you into the now. They bring you into this moment, and you see the beautiful, complex colors that if you're in your mind, you wouldn't see. They bring you back to your heart. And for that reason, I was terrified of becoming a mother, and I wouldn't exchange it for anything in the world, is because I always talk about the fact that I wanted to be an actor, and I wanted to be an actor because I wanted to feel the magic of the movies. That's what I wanted to do, because the magic would do that when I went to the cinemas. But I never felt that in the set, when it was like it's an artificial process, whereas every day is magic. I feel like I'm at Disneyland with my son every day, and you would be the same. They let you see the magic you'd forgotten about when you were so young.
Well, I think the most important thing that stands out there, especially with mental health, is when you're in a state of anxiety or depression, you spend so much time in your own head. You're either looking backwards or looking forwards, but you're in your own head all the time. And it takes so much work to get out into that present moment of now. And so exactly what you're saying there, to give yourself that space and go, no, I need to stop, and I need to connect with my son, or anyone else around you, or just even if you've got a fur baby, you know, to connect with that thing in that present time now. And I think that's one of the major points of healing, or the major starting points of healing, is actually taking those moments now and finding the gratitude, the joy, the love of those individual moments, and the natural environment that you're in, because we have so much here that we just don't take advantage of in experiencing. You know, we I guess take for granted or take advantage in many other ways, but taking those moments to experience and, you know, point out the sunsets, or the moon in the sky, or all those lovely things that work really well. And yeah, it's just amazing. I'll go through my photos of all the landscapes and everything, and there are so many sunrises and sunsets and beaches, and, you know, my son loves mountain peaks, and talking about how they happened, and volcanoes and dinosaurs, and then it all leads and connects. And yeah, it's just amazing that how much when you focus on that present moment, then it gives you all these ideas of things you can explore. And then, you know, you can do those without having to necessarily spend money. You can go to the library and research, and you can do all these different things. We've gone, you know, to different libraries around Australia because they all have different programs on, and it's just amazing to see, you know, the difference of things that are done in Victoria compared to New South Wales or Queensland or over in Western Australia, and things like that. And, you know, you can drive for however long and see nothing or everything, or, you know, those big things that cover all the wheat apparently look like those jumping pillows. Oh. So they get really excited about the jumping pillows. It's kind of like a silo, but then you've got to work through explaining that. No, we can't stop at the jumping pillow, but let's do this. Or, you know, the amazing parks in Queensland, you know, have miniature trains and railways, and always have these big kind of roundabout runny things. And yeah, there's really big differences around the country in how they do things, and you can really see just the joy of, like you say, just checking out the different playgrounds in places, and the colours, the surfaces, and yeah, just where it leads you off on all sorts of different tangents. So.
What I also like in the hearing is that with you stopping and appreciating those moments, those sunsets, those sunrises, you're actually modelling to your son how he can do it as an adult, not just as a child, like in those stressful situations, like, which is really profound. Like, your son is going to have his toolkit that he can rely on of how, like, you're modeling by example. And I suspect there's times that your son does it without you even being aware, or he'll tell you that he's doing it, and then you're like, oh wow, he learned that from me.
Yeah, there's times you can sit there and say that both ways. Yeah, oh man, they learned that one from me. Or yay, they learned that one from me. Yeah, there are lots. For me, it's the inquiry. It's always wanting to learn about where you are and what's around you, that is always going to be that, you know, that lifelong learner, and really connect to your environment and the people. You know, we've been able to stop at a lot of really interesting Indigenous places around Australia and different artefacts, and, you know, trying to explain to a 4-year-old some of the history and things like that, and just the questions they ask. You're like, wow. One, I'm amazed that you even came up with the question, but then after you've explained it and they turn around with their statement, because, you know, they're always feeding back to you what you've said in their own words, you're like, yeah, you really put that forward better than what I ever could. And yeah, I'm really impressed about the kind of social awareness that he's coming up with. And I know a lot of his interactions are all in public places, public parks and things like that. So he's learning how to deal with kids that are older than him or younger than him, or, you know, don't know his accent or how he talks or they talk or things like that. So they find their own different ways to communicate and get along and play and that kind of thing. And it's just amazing to watch that and see that, because, like, you know, you can give yourself such a hard time, especially in the early days, that, you know, they've had too much screen time or they've done this or they've done that. Like, especially when with a lot of the moving,
Yes.
I had the TV on all the time, because all we had was just a little lounge room and that was it. You know, there was a bedroom and a lounge room kind of thing. So you'd have the TV on and say, you know, it's the only way the scenery changes in here.
Yeah.
Is, you know, you've got the TV on and I've stuck stuff to the walls and I rotate the toys. That's the only way, you know, things can be different. So if you start getting into a lot of that, you start feeling, you know, that things could change or things could be a bit different. But then when you reflect on being able to travel and the kind of things he's taking on board and there, you know, they do weigh out in the end. Don't get me wrong, you try and do things differently with the screen time, and, you know, everyone likes to, it seems a taboo issue, it's either one way or the other. But as long as, you know, you don't hold guilt over it, there's times you need your downtime, and if that's what it is that helps you get dinner cooked or that gives you that time to sit and relax and, you know, take a breath yourself, so be it.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to make up for it later. And, you know, your child was given to you for a reason, and there's something from you that is their lesson too.
Absolutely. I believe in that. I believe our children choose. And I used to think, oh, this when I was a kid. No, it's not true. I chose my parents, because my parents have made me who I am today. Every lesson and everything that they've done, good and bad, is made me who I am. And I wouldn't exchange that experience for anything, even though some of them have been hard and trialing for me. I actually love them for what they've done, because I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you wanting to have this connection with other mums and help other people if it wasn't for the circumstances that I came from. And I believe my son has chosen the lessons with me. And I used to have so much guilt regards to my addiction, thinking, oh no, he's going to take it on. And then, one, he hasn't, because he's a different person and how he goes through the world. But two, it's like you said, once I removed that guilt and I was able to be present with him and give him where he needs to be, because I struggled with giving time for my son. He didn't have any TV until recently, like a month ago. It was the first time. Now he's an addict because he's never seen it before. Like, but he'll grow out of it. It's fine. But I was struggling mentally. Like, I'd come home, my husband works long hours, I'd go off at him. I was resentful at my son because I wasn't getting the things I wanted done. Well, now he gets some screen time, and in that time, I use that, 30 minutes or an hour to do something physically active or something that nourishes my soul. And like you said, I'm there and present with him. I'm not sitting in the back of my mind, oh, I should be doing this or that. I go, and sometimes my mind will say that, oh, you should be doing this or that, and you're not getting anywhere. And I go, no, it's okay. I did it before and I get it again tomorrow. And the most important thing is to be here with him right now. And I just really, really want to convey that to mums. It's really, stop trying to be perfect. Like, you can't be perfect, and it doesn't matter. No matter what my mum did, I still had complaints about everything she did. And my mum tried to do everything to perfection for herself, like give me everything I didn't have as a child. Give me and give me a life that she didn't have. And I'm trying to do that now. But in the end of the day, my son is still going to have conversations with me when he's older about things I could have done better and things that he didn't like. And you know what? I'm just going to look at those points, look at the things that I am doing right, where am I? And most importantly, as a mum, just love. If I can just love him and teach him, like you're saying too, that self-love, if I can show myself self-love, and then he models himself and how he navigates the world based on how I do it. And I know you probably know this too well. It's the most important lesson we can give.
That's it. And I think one of the hardest things as well is, as they get older, taking that step back and handing over some responsibility to them. Like, I've only just recently, set up routine cards, and he actually has jobs now.
Oh, wow.
And I found I was having a lot of problems with behaviour and things like that when I was trying to get housework done, because he wanted to be involved but did it in a negative kind of attention-seeking way.
Yep.
Whereas now when I'm doing my housework, he has his housework that he has to do as well.
What jobs is he doing, out of curiosity?
He has to make his bed. He has to clean up his room. He has plants in the garden he has to water. And he does some vacuuming.
Wow, that's a good idea.
So and he has to put all his clothes in the laundry.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it's those kind of things that, and on the weekend for the first time, he cleaned the bathroom vanity sink, because he's also done a really good job at bringing in dirt from outside. And I came into the bathroom one day and my sink had the plug in it and it was full of mud. and it was just after I'd cleaned it, and I was just standing there going, just walk away. So now he's had to clean it down, one of those funky eraser wipe things.
Yep.
That it's really satisfying. You wipe it once and you don't need to use any chemicals or anything, but you can see it go from dirt to clean.
Yes.
And so he did that for the first time, and it's still clean.
Wow.
Now that he's noticed what you need to do to clean it up, it's actually still clean. So, yeah, I think handing over some of that stuff is really powerful for them, because now they have control. He now has control over his environment being his bedroom.
Wow.
He's got to take care of those toys and take care of that bed. Yes, I'll help when he's had to go first, and things like that, if making the bed's frustrating him. But, yeah, he has a space that he gets to control now.
Wow.
And so he doesn't need to do that through behaviour. Is really the only other tool they've got. So, yeah, that's just been a really positive thing that we've kind of worked through recently.
Because your son is 4 years old, is that right, Mr.?
Yes, he's 4.
Yeah. There's a good big changes. Like, I know my son's only coming into 2, but the big difference in a 2 and a 4-year-old and how their brain, like, and you would have witnessed that yourself, how his brain is constantly developing and changing, and he's evolving into a different person every day.
And that's it. Like, there's so much frustration they go through, just so many ideas and so much learning, but how do you get that out? How do you express that? Or he knows exactly what he wants to say in his head, but getting that out of his mouth in the same time that he's thinking that, it's really hard. And he has a lot of big words, but saying them and thinking them are very different. So yeah, it's again taking that time in the moment, in the presence, letting them work through and get it out. Stopping to stop and listen, because he gets very frustrated if you're continuing doing the dishes or something while he's talking to you. But also understanding there are times when you're sitting on the toilet and you don't need to have a conversation. You need to, go and do something. I will be out in a minute. I don't know if that ever stops. But, so you need putting boundaries in place as well. This is my space. I need this right now. You need to go and do something else, or you need to, do kid stuff. I'll be out in a minute. Go pick a book, or go pick something, and I'll come out in a moment.
I love it, because it's making me realise this, because my son's slowly progressing to that stage, and it was that I've got to remember each time, take that breath and remember before I react to any situation that his brain is only 21 months old. So he doesn't really have the tools or the ability to articulate what's going on. And that's something you have to constantly breathe in as a parent. Okay, even if the child is 16, even the brain doesn't finish developing until it's 28 years old. You've got to remember they've only been here for this many years. So they're still just falling and trying to find their way and their place in the world.
And that's it. Like, especially with things like anxiety and things like that, you will find that your temper or your string of patience is a lot shorter than what you want it to be, especially in times of high stress, or for whatever reason you're being triggered and your brain's fine but your body is not, and there's a lot of disjointed kind of things there. So you will react quicker or in ways that you don't want or you don't expect. And I think it's about remembering that, you know, tomorrow is a fresh start.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, okay, there are some things you could have done better, and, you know, you might sit there and think about what you could change or a different approach. But at the same time, you need to also have the gratitude as well. Well, actually, okay, that went a little bit pear-shaped, but at least we did this really well. And, you know, what works today is not going to work tomorrow. So really give yourself that space of strategies are going to change, and tomorrow I'm going to have a go at that situation this way instead.
Yeah, when you know better, you do better. That's like a big philosophy in mine, is when you know better, you do better, you know, and that's what I'm hearing what you're saying. But the gratitude, I think that's really important too. You know, we jump that in life. And I know that you run a gratitude group yourself, like every day.
Yes.
Yes, I love it. Insights, like an insight of what's happened, and three things that you're grateful for every day. And I think it's really important that we reflect upon, you know, one, the insight of what you've learned, like I hear what you're saying, and two, what you're grateful for.
Well, I started that a few years ago, and that was when I was in a really dark place, especially after the court cases, and when the court case was really coming to a head and all that kind of stuff. So I needed something to just little steps to change that mindset. And I would do it at the end of each day. And sometimes I would sit there, you know, for a good hour or two, just attempting to come up with the 3 things I was grateful for that day. Because 1, you don't want to be repetitive. But 2, you know, you can be grateful for what sometimes people could see as a simple thing, such as, you know, food and clothing and a home or a roof over your head. But, you know, there are times that they're huge achievements as well. And, you know, sometimes you're just really grateful for the level of medical care that we have access to.
Yeah.
There are so many different things, and you know, sometimes you can just be grateful for the fact of, yes, I got dinner on the table. Other times it's, you know, I got to a cafe and you know, I got a smile off someone that made me feel really good, or I gave a smile to someone and it really looked like it changed their day. And yeah, it's again bringing you back to those moments in the day that you can be proud of yourself. It's those, yeah, bringing you back to the presence rather than getting all in your head, and reconnecting with what your values and beliefs are as well. Because a lot of the time you let go of those kind of things.
I agree.
And yeah, just reconnecting with what is important to you.
Well, Kim, I'm going to let us end on that note, but I want to tell everyone how we met. We met through an educational platform that we're both a part of, that we love, and we wouldn't have known each other at all if it wasn't a platform. And I'm so grateful I get that shout out, because one, you have an amazing journey, and I know you have so much that you are sharing with the world. So with this post, I will tag your professional page so that people can reach out and follow you, because I know a lot of people have a lot. Well, I've learned a lot from you today, and a lot to learn from your insight and everything that's happened in your life. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a continued journey for all of us, and I think it is just embracing, that lifelong journey and that personal development and things like that. And that's one of the best things that's been highlighted through, you know, meeting beautiful people like yourself. Is just that journey that we're all on, and we just have so much to share and that we have to offer, and it's just getting it out there.
It is. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it for giving me a greater insight into things that I only knew on a surface level, and I really do appreciate you even being vulnerable and in sharing your story. Yeah, and there's so many people that they aren't commenting because, of course, it's just you and I, but I know they're grateful too. And you would know from your situation, you tend to, when you're going through that, you suffer in silence and you don't even know how to reach out. And on that note, you don't mind if people reach out to you, do you? If they're
No, not at all.
out and ask, yeah, I thought that would be the case.
Mm-hmm.
Well, go and enjoy Mr. Four. I can hear my husband's come back, and that's hence the reason why I jump in. I could talk to you all day, but I can suspect my Mr. Two is going to be here in a minute asking for Mum. So thank you, Kim.
Have a lovely day. Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.